Welcome to the Business Leadership Series, where we engage with leaders who are making an impact on their worlds and who want to share their knowledge and experience for your personal and professional growth. The following interview is designed to inspire you to become the best leader you can be. Your host, Derek Champagne, is the founder and CEO of The Artist Evolution, a full-service agency building successful brands, marketing tools, and campaigns, and also the author of the best-selling book, Don't Buy a Duck. And now, let's begin today's Leadership Series interview.
Welcome to the Business Leadership Series, where our goal is to inspire you to become the best leader that you can be. Our guest today, Bryan Falchuk, he is a best-selling author, a speaker, and a life coach. He's going to talk with us today. He's faced some major adversities, and he's learned how to overcome them and achieve. From obesity to running marathons, from career struggles to success as a CXO, from watching illness threaten his family to finding lasting health. He's been through many lessons. You know, I like to learn from people who have actually tried and true, been through things that they talk about. Bryan, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Derek.
Hey, where are you calling from?
I am up in the Boston area where it's very cold. We'll leave it at that.
It is cold, yes. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your background. I want to get to know you and give us some highlights of your story, and you can start as far back as you like to.
Yeah, so my story does start pretty far back. Almost 40 years ago, I was a 5-year-old kid, pretty happy, and then all of a sudden I wasn't. Like a lot of people, my parents were getting divorced. And I was the youngest of four, not the youngest of five, sorry, for the youngest of four. And there was a dog too, so maybe that was the fifth. As that young of a kid, I really didn't understand what was going on, and I didn't understand the emotions that I was facing. But there was one really basic child's need that I wasn't having met, and that was the need to feel like everything was going to be safe and okay. Because kids can't do that for themselves. And, because I didn't understand that, I still had a need to fulfill it. And, it's not like I could talk about it with my parents because, I was 5. I was going to be like, Mom, I'm having some emotional distress right now based on the divorce. And, their hands were full. Like I said, there were 3 other kids in the house and the dog. Soon there was a cat as well. There's a lot going on.
Just keep adding to the complexities, right?
Yeah. I think we had a rabbit at one point.
Wow.
My brother liked weird animals. So there'd be there was a crocodile, a cayman, anyway.
Those are ones that don't really give affection back too, right?
Not so much.
So that doesn't help at all.
Yeah. That's a whole other show. We shouldn't. Yeah. Let me pull it back. But, so, I've got this anxiety that essentially the sky is going to fall. And as a little kid, I couldn't do anything about it. And so I turned for comfort to food because it's always there. It never says no. It's always good. It's not like arguing and moving out or any of the things that I was seeing around me. And I gained weight really, really fast. Between 5 and 6, I went from being a normal, skinny, smiley little kid to an obese, depressed, unhappy kid who was basically just staying at home trying to plot the next time I could go sneak some food where people wouldn't see. And it just got worse because, I wasn't dealing with the root cause of it. So I'd go off and eat to try to fill that hole, and it would fill it for a few minutes, and then the hole would be there again, and I'd eat some more. And it just, it spiraled. So I got to about 100 pounds overweight by high school years. I currently weigh the same as I did early in 5th grade.
Wow.
I think it's so when people are like, you want to weigh what you did in high school. I'm like, God, I hope not. I'd be in trouble.
That's great.
But so I put on all this weight. I wasn't dealing with the source of the anxiety. And as a result, the anxiety just got stronger and stronger. And I would typify my life with this idea that everything's about to go wrong. And once I was old enough to actually do things for myself and take care of problems, I just became hyper vigilant, and I was like the fixer. I would jump in and try to fix everything. And that served me really well in a lot of ways. I'm very independent, self-reliant. I was a management consultant for years, and that's basically what my job was. Unfortunately, my job reinforced my anxiety because it rewarded me for being really good at seeing when things were about to go horribly wrong and try to fix them preemptively or pick up the pieces and make it whole again. So, that's kind of my backstory. And I lost weight. I actually am just coming back from having lunch with the guy who I credit with my initial weight loss. He ran the PE program in my school and just takes a very positive, self-empowering kind of approach and introduced me to exercise in a different way than I had ever seen before. It was no longer about punishment. It was about, well, what do you like? Let's explore different exercises and ways of eating and all that you enjoy, because you're not going to keep doing what you hate. It's one of the first lessons that I learned firsthand. So I lost weight, but didn't
old were you
deal
when
with
that
it.
happened? How long into your life did you go before you had this aha? And kind of take me back in that moment too, because many of us have these moments of the road to Damascus where a light hits us, or we have this epiphany, and sometimes it's painful, bad choices for years and years, and constant struggle. But give us that mindset and where you were at that time of your life.
Well, here's the thing. The light didn't switch on. But I was about 17 when the change really hit. So I got down to, roughly what I weigh right now when I was 17, 18 years old. Okay. So, it was about 12 years of obesity. The problem was, while I had these tools, which was great, like there's a light switch going off then or going on. The reason why I was obese was still there. So, just because I could exercise and I enjoyed it doesn't mean the reason why I was overeating and making the wrong choices was fixed. And I just wasn't ready to face it. That's I don't want to fault this guy for not dealing with it. It's like, look, I was a kid when he started working with me. I didn't understand most of what I've come to face. I didn't face until I was in my 30s, and I wasn't ready to. So that stuff stuck with me. So I had tools, but I was still walking in the dark. Like I hadn't learned how to turn on the flashlight yet. And that moment when the light came on, that's my big wake up. And that's where this journey I've been on since then, that's where it all comes from, including my book.
Man, and we'll talk about your book in just a minute. I'm excited to. Bryan, first of all, thank you for – a lot of people don't get out of the shadows of the things they're dealing with. And I have seen – I can remember last year when it really hit me, and I was sitting next to a man who seemed very successful. He was in his 70s, and somebody that you would think had it figured out, and he's sitting around a campfire with a group of guys and was just talking about his issues with his mom in a way that was like he was still a child. Yeah. And he had never dealt with it. And he was emotional and weeping about it, and he couldn't get over it. He couldn't get past it. And all the self-sabotage that this 70-year-old man had in his life was from his mom issues.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. And it hit me, and I've got my own story too, but it hit me that I'm never going to get past some things, or some people never do unless they figure out how to and get past it. So what do you say to someone that goes, yeah, that's great, but I'm just in this self-sabotage perpetual cycle. I don't even know how I would start. What do I do?
Yeah. So there's a reason why, we don't just act that way for no reason. There is some underlying cause, and you may not be aware of what it is. And I think that's kind of the idea for this guy that you mentioned is maybe it sounds like he is aware of it, but he's not actually fully facing it. And I get that, it can be really hard. It can be upsetting, scary, maybe it comes from a place of trauma, and our brain has shut those memories out as a protection mechanism. And if you as an outsider are trying to push that person to face that stuff, well, their brain is saying, this is a threat. I need to do everything I can to get away from this person and to shut them down. So it is really tricky. And that's, this is the kind of stuff I get into in my coaching work is it comes down to asking the right questions and getting people comfortable probing themselves and trying to understand. I had a call about a week and a half ago with someone who his dad really wasn't on the scene, and now he would describe him as a friend. And, he's fine. We've got no problems. I don't have any issues from my dad. And as I hear about what he's facing today, a lot of the things that he's struggling with and the things he's striving for and doing well with, they're tied to his father's acceptance. And I think he knew it, but he wouldn't face it because it's too hard, and it felt like a disrespect to his mother, who had done everything for him and, been so successful in raising him and being a strong support and all that. And he had such love for her that admitting that his father had that kind of hold on him, I think was like it got at his values. It was making him question his ethics. And that's real stuff. That's part of being a human. But guess what? You're not going to move forward without these things weighing you down until you face them.
Yeah. I believe every single person has an amazing story to share. A lot of several stories are more painful than others. But when you think about the kintsugi art, the Japanese art, where when there's broken pieces, there's some intentional breaking, and then they take the vessel and they put it back together, and it's broken. It's more beautiful than it was before. And I really do believe that. I believe each of us has that story. And I want others to know how loved and important they are, and that they're not alone. Because when we're in these things, we feel very alone and we feel judged. And there is somebody else, most, who are going through something similar but different or same, and have walked in your shoes and can help you get out of it too. But, I think it's being willing to open up the curtain and let some light in too. And that's scary for people sometimes. What's the first step? What does someone do? I get addressing it and facing it, but man, that sounds like some great self-help things to do, but where do you even start? Is it getting a coach? Is it telling somebody? What do you do?
Yeah. So whether you get a coach or you turn to some structure or a book or a podcast, taking that inspiration in, we all go through different paths. I do think that there's a lot of value in having someone else help you through it, especially if, I've been trying for years and I just can't seem to, okay, well, how have you been trying? And, that definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome, we got to tweak things. Right. And maybe it takes someone else to, and this is where I think actually a coach perspective is really valuable. A coach is not there to tell you the answer, and a coach is not there to just get you to spill all your beans. A coach is there to ask you those maybe annoying at times questions.
Right.
Not accepting your answer. Like when this guy was like, oh, I don't have any problems with my dad. And I said, well, really? Let's look at that. Tell me about this thing you're doing. And he explained it. And I said, okay, well, what is that about? Why would you care about that? Because you just told me you don't care about those things. So why is this one sticking with you? Yeah. And it's a coach is the one who sort of guides you through figuring yourself out. So you come to that epiphany and you're like, you came to it yourself. You just had someone pulling it out of you a bit. Yeah. I think that's really valuable. And there's, everyone's at different places in their readiness to work with someone, and not everyone's a fit for everyone. So try them out. There's a ton of coaches that do podcasts like this, so you can kind of get a feel for whether someone's a fit or not that way. That's one way to try. But I am a big fan of getting that help. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with it. Luckily today, therapy and these sorts of things don't have the stigma that they did 20, 30, 40 years ago. Right. But I think for a lot of people, there's still that hesitation.
Well, I work in the marketing field, and even some of our very successful clients we work with, we usually find ways to improve them. That's why they hired us. And I can't tell how many times people apologize and go, wow, you must think this is such a mess. And I say, it needs to be. If it isn't, then there's nothing I can help you with. Yeah. And every, I've seen every type of thing you can imagine, from the worst to the best, and there's always a room for improvement. So I always tell people, don't apologize. And I know that applies to other areas as well. A coach is not there to judge you. A coach is there to challenge you, as you mentioned, and to help make you better. And I do believe everyone has the ability to be excellent. And that's my word. Excellence is my word for 2019. I want to be excellent, but I can't be excellent without being brutally honest about some things in my past. And about who I really am, and what my limitations might be and why. And if I can be brutally honest about that, then all that's going to happen is I'm going to be able to become better.
Yeah, that's very true. And those answers that you're brutally honest about, that's not for the coach or the therapist or the friend or whoever. It's for you. And that's why I say, I think this guy already knew. Yeah. And I think that, the guy that you're talking about, he probably already knows how he feels about his mother and the power it has over him, whether he's, fully facing it or not. There's, you asked me where do you start, and we were talking about the sort of the logistics or the tactics about, do I get someone to help me? How do I find them? That sort of thing. But the first stage of any of the help that I give, it's this idea of self-love. And that's kind of what we're talking about right now. When you say, what people have gone through and I'm all alone in this judgment of it. Some people also judge themselves at like, oh, well, I haven't gone through anything that bad, or what I've gone through isn't as bad as what you did, so I'm invalid in feeling like I need help. Well, look, it's not a competition. There's no comparison. Your story is your story, and it's relevant to who you are. So it doesn't matter whether it's better or worse or harder or easier or whatever. Yeah. But if you're feeling all that judgment, self-love is an issue. And you can call it self-worth or self-value if self-love sounds too touchy-feely for you. Yeah. If you don't have that, what you're lacking is two really critical things. One is the idea that you deserve to be on the other side of this. You deserve to be in a place of better. And the other is that you actually are capable of getting there. Yeah. If you don't love yourself enough, you're not going to think, you're going to say to all these, oh, well, I can't do that because whatever your excuse is, because I'm not good enough, or that's for those people over there. I don't get to have these kinds of things. No, you need to get to a place where you feel comfortable enough with yourself and strong enough about yourself that you recognize your story matters. You deserve to get to a place of better or excellent, as you're saying, and you're capable of doing whatever it takes to get there, just as you have been with every other challenge in your life. Because, by the way, as much as you may feel you've failed at times or whatever, the fact that you're still standing today is proof enough that you're way more capable than you give yourself credit for in those tough moments. Otherwise, you would have folded long ago, right? You wouldn't be here.
And my daughter thanks for sharing that. My daughter had a spelling bee at her school last month, and one of the girls might have been 6 years old, maybe 7. And she got the answer wrong in front of the school and all the parents, and she came down just weeping. And she was sitting right in front of our family, and it broke my heart. She said, "Mom, I hate myself."
Oh, God.
And it hurt. And I just thought, why do we do this to ourselves at such an early age? Yeah. Why are we so hard on ourselves that young? And I understand wanting to do well, but to hate yourself, it's strong language that she's heard. But man, I just thought, wow, how often do we do that to ourselves on a regular basis? And that's at 6. I'm in my 40s. And I can look back at so many times.
Add the years up of that kind of behavior. And where is it? I mean, look, for little kids, it comes from somewhere. So where is she getting that notion that failing on that stage means so much?
And she had beat out the other classes. My daughter, same way. My daughter came down and had tears in her eyes, but she had a different mindset about it and knew that it was okay. And we were proud of her. She was a first in her class to do it. She got a lot of words right. She made it to the 4th round. Now there was kids that made it to 12 rounds, but she made it to the 4th and represented her entire class. Yeah. That's something to be celebrating at a young age.
Yeah. And it's right. I mean, so we're not saying this is ignore the tough stuff or everyone gets a trophy. No, like there are real failures and there are real difficulties, and they're also called learning points. I was talking to someone earlier today about how interesting it is to me that as adults, it's like we want to have the ability to complete anything before we've begun it. Otherwise, we're not willing to do it. Whereas you look at a child, if that was the mentality from early on, no one would walk, no one would speak, no one would feed them. So, I mean, you have to do things before you're quite ready for them to build up the ability to achieve it. So maybe don't worry about judging yourself so much. Man, give it a shot.
That's great. Bryan, I see a lot of high performers. Many of the people we're talking to, it's not like they can't pull themselves out of bed. They're doing all kinds of things. Yeah. But they might have an A in one area of their life and F's in the other area of their life. And one of my mentors one time said, if Derek, if you're bringing home a scorecard, congratulations on getting an A in work. But if you have an F with your family and your diet and your health, your parents aren't going to say, hey, great job on that A and just ignore the rest of it. They're going to say, let's talk about these F's. Yeah. So, I don't think we're just talking to people that can't get out of bed. We're talking to people that are just stuck in one part of their life, maybe that they can't get over.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't think we ultimately can compartmentalize our lives. So, people ask me, what do people come to you about for coaching? And I said, it's not to ignore what they say they want to work on, but I don't really care. That sounds terrible. But what I mean is, whatever your reason for, I want to fix this or I want to fix that, that's great. But we're going to look at the whole shebang because we are intertwined. So if you're failing in one part of your life or you believe you are and you're successful somewhere else, that's fine. But you could be better in the successful place. And ultimately, you may not be able to sustain it because that failing part will continue to eat you. It'll stop you. It'll hurt you. It may bring the whole thing down, especially if it's your home life. You can only fake that for so long. You get tired, you get run down, you feel unsupported. Emotionally, you're in a bad place. You start lashing out at people who aren't part of that issue. It becomes pervasive. And if you think that you leave problems at work when you get home, maybe you can't ask your spouse, but have someone else ask them, like, does he really leave it behind? That's not reality. So I do think we need to address the whole picture. And you can fool yourself for a little while. You can fake it till you make it for a bit. But ultimately, and whether you can or you can't, why would you want to? Like you can put in the work and get to a different place 360, holistically. And that's much more appealing to me. You can't be excellent if a whole part of your life is anything but great.
That's great, man. Thank you for sharing. You've done several TED Talks. You've been featured in LA Times, Chicago Tribune, Inc. magazine, and much more. I appreciate you sharing your story of transformation. Tell me what you mean when you say people don't change, lives do.
Yeah, so we are who we are, and that's a beautiful thing. Back to that self-love point, you don't need to be someone else to be successful or to be worthy. You can still be you, but you can create a whole new narrative for your life and how you live it. And that's me. Before we didn't talk about my wake up moment, but before this moment in 2011, I was, Joe anxiety or Bryan anxiety, trying not to be obese again. And that was a miserable existence. That is so far from any of who I am today. I'm still me. My life is completely different. And that's the approach that I preach to people is you can reframe your entire life and still be true to yourself. You just got to figure out who yourself is. Wow.
That's great. Hey, we've got a couple minutes left, and I want to talk about your book. Tell me about what readers can expect with your book.
Yeah, so, I take them through my story, and I gave you guys the background of it. But this moment in 2011, I have a wife who has a chronic illness that reared its head, and it looked like she was about to die. Now, she didn't die, but wow. It was pretty clear that's what was going to happen. And our son was too, and he watched the whole thing. Wow. She was wasting away, and that was for me the big wake up moment. Is I got off the phone with her doctor when he gave me that, that's it, nothing more to do, and I'm going on vacation. I was like, oh, thanks. I come back into our bedroom, and my son looks me in the eyes, and that just floored me. That was my wake up, and I decided the way I was feeling about that. I felt this power I'd never felt before. I need to figure out what the heck this feeling is, why I feel it, and what's different about it. Really for myself to be able to keep things going and get to the bottom of it all. But it came to a place of so I could help others with it too, because what I ended up discovering was what I call Do a Day, which is the name of the book. But that's how I live my life. It's a way to look at yourself through self-love, your true motivation, something that's deep, profound, enduring, that will always be with you and always carry you, even in those darkest moments. Building goals that are about changing your life, not just little increments, and ultimately how you execute. And that's what Do a Day itself is about, is freeing yourself from this pain and regret of yesterday and the fear of all the things that are going to go wrong tomorrow, because none of that's happening. And when you live your life focused on yesterday and tomorrow, you give up any chance to do what you need to do today. And that's how I've changed my life. And it's not perfect. I have moments where, I get scared about something or I feel bad about something because I'm human. But I know how to work through that, and I know how to keep it from defining my present state so I can continue to achieve. And that's the changed life, but the same person kind of life that I'm living.
That's awesome, Bryan. Thanks for sharing your story. Where can we find your book, and how can we learn more about you?
Yeah, so if you can spell my name, that's the easiest way to find me is BryanFalchuk.com. So it's BryanFalchuk.com. You get links to everything I do there, including the book. The book's for sale everywhere, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Nook, iBooks, Audible. I can't think of the rest, but it's literally everywhere. So you can easily pick it up anywhere you like.
Bryan, any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners today?
I'm such a broken record on self-love, but that's because without it, nothing else matters. Like there's nothing else we talk about that matters. So I really ask people to reflect on that is what are you saying, thinking, and doing that fights the notion that you deserve better and you're capable of achieving it? Try to rid yourself of those things. And I've got exercises that I give people, but just reflect on that for a little bit and think about how self-supporting you are versus self-destroying.
Thank you so much, Bryan. I really appreciate you sharing your story. I know it's a journey that's painful sometimes with parts of it, and I think it's our duty sometimes to get healthy so that we can help others be healthy. Yeah. And that's what you're doing. And for our listeners that feel like they're not there, I'm telling you, on the other side of this, you are going to change countless lives as well, but starting with your own. And that's how much of an impact you can have by being healthy for yourself. BryanFalchuk.com, author, best-selling author of Do a Day, speaker, life coach. Bryan, thanks again. I look forward to watching the next great things that you're doing.
Thanks so much, Derek.
Thank you, buddy.
You've been listening to the Business Leadership Series, where we engage with leaders who are making an impact on their worlds and who want to share their knowledge and experience for your personal and professional growth. This interview was designed to inspire you to become the best leader you can be.